Welcome to Who Dares Rolls. I'm Charlie Etheridge Nunn, and I'm your guide to our overview of Black Armada's games. Last time, we covered some beautiful, poetic Lovecraftian horror in Lovecraft-esque, and some lurkings in the down below in Flotsam Adrift Amongst the Stars. This time, I'll be talking about wolves. So, I come from a very dog family, and we've almost always had them in our lives. As you can see up here, this is one of the wood carvings that my late mother did of a wolf. She did several different she was a sculptor, so she did tons and tons of carvings, but one of her main influences was always dogs and always wolves. We've always had them around the house, and even with that, I've never been much of a werewolf fiction kind of person. I started role-playing with Vampire the Masquerade, and then dabbled in, the other games for a while, and I hit a good maybe decade where the main thing that I would run were World of Darkness games. But the one that I barely ever touched was Werewolf. We did a short campaign, a couple of one-shots, but that was it. And when I saw Becky Annison was doing a game about werewolves, I was initially going, wow, I mean, it's Becky Annison, so I'm there no matter what, but I don't care for the subject matter so much. And she turned me around on that, specifically in this case, because this isn't just about, I'm a big werewolf, I'm gonna rip things apart and run around the hills and all that. I'm part of family. And I realise now, this could easily be hacked into a Fast and Furious werewolf mashup. But we'll leave that for later. This is a game that asks you the questions: do you want to be a werewolf? Do you want the feeling of belonging and standing shoulder to shoulder with comrades? Do you want to explore the rivalries and messy relationships of pack life? And I'd extend that even to family life here. Because this is the primary focus of Bite Marks. You are a person and you are the wolf. And as such, you are dealing with both factors and dealing with family. This is a Powered by the Apocalypse game. So you have a number of stats, in this case, feral, heart, guts, teeth, and ties to people. Each of these get modified by a couple of d6 when you make a move. And a move is something that fits the narrative of the kind of game we're telling. Anything that doesn't fit these moves, you'll figure out either the MC, which the person running the game will go, oh yeah, you do it, which is the most common kind of thing, or try and reframe things slightly. So the moves in this are things like disobey. So when you're told to do an order, there's a move called Dominate. And this is one of the few Powered by the Apocalypse games that can force a player's hand. So PBTA is not about taking agency away from people. It's about giving a ton of agency, both mechanical and narrative, to players. So as such, in this case, they luckily have a lot of caveats in here saying, oh, you're doing the Dominate move. This isn't, I mind control you, you will do whatever awful thing, kill this person, chop your hand off. No. Nope. None of that. This is more pick your Uncle Eric up from the airport. That kind of thing. This is the family guilt level of Dominate. Admittedly, with a werewolf flavour to it. So it might be, look, you get up on that hill and see, we've got a threat that's supposed to be coming in. Keep an eye out for it. Oh, but Dad, I don't want it. Go. Dominate roll. And they can always disobey. And even the Dominate move doesn't make it so that you are feeling kind of icky, trapped, or anything like, or again, like your agency has been brutally removed. So there's those. There's make a challenge, because you will have an alpha in the pack. There's mauling, which is when you're actually ripping someone apart, doing anything like that. That unsurprisingly uses teeth. There's giving into the wolf, because you can shift back and forth, and that's fine. But if you give in to the wolf, you're getting mechanical bonuses from making this move. But that's where the PBTA goodness comes in, because you roll these dice, you add your modifier, and if you get 10 plus, you get what you want. Woo! If you get 7 to 9, you get what you want, but with a twist in it. So that's where I go woo, because 7 to 9 is the fun one. And then on a 6 or lower, that's where the MC makes a move back at you. I've seen other games call them reactions, which is quite a nice way of putting it. And those are things like signaling future harm, or actually doing harm, or, you know, oh yeah, you're flustered, you kind of spill out some of your emotions, you lose something, anything like that. And this actually has a really good guide as to what's a soft move. So just signaling future badness, or a hard move. Oh my god, badness is here. So that's really cool. There's harnessing for wolf. So even as a human, if you're like, oh, I want to sniff and figure out who around here is part of this kind of demonic cabal that's been hunting wolves. There's act on instinct, and there's something called provoke spill. And much like the dominate move, this is one of the new interesting things in here. You all have emotions, you have secrets, you have, you know, oh yeah, I'll pick Uncle Eric up, but I hate him. Oh, he's so tedious. Spill is something where you can trigger in other people, them spilling out their emotions, revealing what is there. And the spill move is basically that. It adds to the tension, adds to drama, and most importantly, it adds to something called pack. Now, there is a communal pool, pack pool, and you generate it throughout the sessions. So you go, oh yeah, I spill my guts, oh, create drama, some pack goes in the pool. And the reason for this is because over time, you're going to get problems, you're going to get threats, and you can trigger pack moves. The pack moves are things like, the big one is overwhelm them. So in a game that I ran, my group were in Devil's Dyke, or near Devil's Dyke, in an old abandoned church. That was their kind of, it was somewhere between a communal home and like community centre sort of thing. So there were people doing arts, crafts, staying there, doing, you know, if they needed somewhere to go, anything like that. And there was a big weird force, which I hadn't figured out what it was, but it turned out to be vampires that had been juicing up on werewolf blood and kind of becoming these weird warped hybrids. And when they were teeming down the dike, getting closer and closer to the group, that's where, even though there was a lot of drama, a lot of kind of soap operatic conflict almost, they had enough in their pool to be able to cash it in and overwhelm the enemy. This is your big third act crescendo kind of moment. There are other things like just defend your territory, which is cheaper, or in your nature, which is where, of course, I'm a tricksy wolf. So we have a contingency plan. Yeah, we abandoned the church, but we've got another place, or we've got traps there. So that's kind of cool as a way of going drama, 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 drama. Oh, we work together, we save the day. Because no matter how shitty they can act to each other, ultimately they do end up coming together. That's one of the great things about family, and it's one of the great things about family in this game. What else? I've not actually covered what your playbooks are, what your skins are, which is your equivalent to character classes. This is another really interesting thing here. You have the cub, which is the newbie. Because this is about messy relationships and all of that, it does stress this isn't a child this is someone who is newly a wolf. There's the enforcer, who's the muscle of all of this. There's the fixer, who can kind of connect you up with stuff. There's the grey pelt, who's the elder, but not necessarily in charge, and that in itself creates some fun drama. There's the howl, who's the spiritual leader. There's the prodigal, who is the one who went away, came back again, which is quite a fun one, because then it's like, oh, we love you, but you did abandon us, you splitter. And finally, there's the alpha. And the alpha is a character playbook who can move. The alpha is only the alpha for as long as they need to be, or as long as you want them to be. So one of the group, the grey pelt, why aren't they the alpha? Well, maybe they don't want to be, but the prodigal comes back and they want to make challenges. They will cause a lot of drama, and ultimately they might take the alpha playbook, and the alpha becomes, say, the howl, that sort of thing. So it's a fascinating transfer of power, of abilities, of moves, that you have this dynamic. And I know the alpha is like alpha wolves and all that is bullshit, but narratively it's a really interesting thing to do. Now, the game that we had was only a one shot, and it recommends in here, and I actually followed the instructions of half make stuff for a one shot, but as far as that goes, I created, like, here's a rough map of Devil's Dyke, which is a real place out on the South Downs. It's got this huge kind of like wedge in it, which apparently the devil might have made. Like, dug out part of it trying to get floods to go into the countryside, and then got scared by one, like a candle or a rooster crowing or any of these. Like, there are many myths, including that the devil and his wife are buried in there, right at the base of where there was once a funicular, which I still want to use in some fiction or role-playing game at some point. But yeah, that's a separate matter. So I actually gave these bits of folklore to the group. I mentioned some of the things around there. I pointed on Google Earth on my iPad to the area and went, where around here do you reckon your pack is? And this is one of the great things about this game, because even though it's not got a complex teaching guide like Lovecraft-esque or Flotsam, it does have a really good guide for doing all of this setup, for going, make your pack, make your place, like the setting that you're in, but also make some slang, make some traditions. And it's got examples of them, luckily, because I did get a few blank looks initially with the slang, which is understandable. It's not something you commonly do, but all of that creates phrases, creates words which are tied not to the wider community, but to us. You know, things like how my brother, when he was younger, had glue ear. I had a grommet, had to learn a lot of speech therapy quite early on, and I helped with that, which, I'm sorry, Alfred, this is probably why you've got some terrible turns of phrase, but one of the things he kept getting wrong was instructions. So he'd keep calling them destructions. And from that point onwards in my family, with all of them, it's always, have you got the destructions for that? Anything like that. And it's that level of slang, but obviously wolf stuff. And that's really interesting to see you generate and build this almost instant camaraderie. The same goes for traditions. What does this pack do? And even in a one-shot setting, that's kind of beautiful, where you go, we know all of these things about ourselves. We know why and how we can stick together. So that's really cool to see. I definitely want to try Bite Marks again. It'll probably end up being a one-shot, as I'm still not a huge werewolf person, but I really love this game. It's definitely what I'd use over, say, Werewolf the Apocalypse, and it was really nice actually running a game in the South Downs, getting to use some of my local bits of knowledge, getting to play around in those hills. There was even a nice chase sequence at the pier as some vampires were holed up in a ghost train that had been boarded up for a while, that sort of thing. So yeah, I definitely recommend. If you want your urban fantasy, if you want your werewolves, this is your best bet. This is a great book and was a really fun time. So, welcome to the last part of my reviews of Black Armada's games. And I'll be talking about the most recent one, Last Fleet by Josh Fox. And it's something you can't quite get away from, and it's this Cylon here. This is very much Battlestar Galactica, the game, but there's nothing wrong with that. Margaret Weiss Productions, I think that's the company we're going under, with the Cortex system in its infancy, made a BSG game, and I read it, and I admit my attitude was very much, well, where mechanically is Battlestar Galactica? And it's here. It's all in this. This is exactly what you want. If you want that tone, if you want that feeling, if you want that tension of Battlestar Galactica, then this is perfect for you. Now, I didn't care much for the old series. I saw only a handful of episodes. I actually think I saw mainly the one where they were on Earth. So I didn't give a shit when the reboot happened. I saw episodes when it was appearing on Sky, as my dad had kind of acquired the ability to get Sky for a while, and for our junk food, junk TV nights, it was all right. But we missed occasional episodes. It was full of adverts, never really took it in. It was only later when my GM at the time, Andy, he and I would meet up, we'd chat, we'd talk about TV shows, and he mentioned BSG. This actually was his copy of it all on Blu-ray. And I saw the first season and went, oh my God, this is great. And the second one, and then nothing else was out. So I bought and watched the original BSG and traded it in about 5 episodes in. Whichever episode it was where they were like, oh dear, all of the boy pilots have the flu, so we're going to have to get girls doing it. Ooh, isn't that weird? So yeah, I guess they were normally too busy thinking about doiling or rabbits or something, but yeah, it was shit, let's face it. But this, like, even in the ropier parts, the new BSG was very, very good. And I defended the finale. I'd finished watching that and Lost in close succession, and both of them had finales which are fine. And I will defend them for being fine. Game of Thrones has proved me the successor as far as good or bad finales go, as did several other shows at the time that ended, things like Dexter and Chuck. I think this doing what the authors want, it's all right, but I'm getting off track. Last Fleet is a game where you are from the Commonwealth. You are the last humans, and you can make your own setting, but this, unlike the others, has a very determined, very specific base setting that personally I wouldn't see any reason to discard unless you literally wanted to do it to just replay BSG. The Commonwealth was destroyed. Oh dear. Oops. That's bad. You are part of the Last Fleet. Ooh, that's the name. Who are on their way, trying to find a way home, trying to find other survivors, trying to do something. And you'll create characters, you'll create a fleet. And if you're a fan of the BSG board game, and I'm a huge fan of the BSG board game, some elements will seem really familiar. The fleet themselves have dials almost, or tracks. They have attrition, which is the wear and tear. It's your food, your fuel, your morale, your population. If there's damage, if there's too much tension, your attrition goes up, and you do not want it going up. When it hits 5, I, the Master of Ceremonies, get to do something bad to the fleet. There's also momentum, which is how the war's going for you. Oh, we've got some experimental fighter jets. We've got some interesting things that we're able to channel into, or we've got them on the back foot. Your momentum's going into the positives. If it's going badly, oh no, fuel ship's blown up, it's going to go down. And you want that high when you jump, much like in BSG, where you want things to, in the BSG board game that is, when you want things to be in the positives, to go, right, we jump, we bring everything in, we go, and hopefully our admiral will send us somewhere good. It's kind of like that on the overall scale, where you're perpetually having this entity chasing you, pursuing you, infiltrating you. In this case, this is the Corex. Now, I've been a bit dismissive and going, oh yeah, this is BSG, but it's a role-playing game. The Corex have some really good, really creepy flavouring of their own. They are a kind of psychic interstellar fungus network. They are a hive mind. They travel using spores. They abduct people and they take them in and they digest them down, and they can spit out duplicates. And these duplicates might not even think that they are duplicates. They may be sleeper agents and cast out from the hive mind to act independently until something happens to activate them. And sometimes they'll even be acting unconsciously in service of the Corex. They are really unpleasant and really sinister, and there is something about that. And just to go back to other sources, there's something unpleasant about that idea about, yeah, you're gone, you're digested, and a thing is using your image, like in Green Lantern, where the orange lanterns, like the avarice lantern, would kill people, and that would spawn a projected kind of duplicate of them, or Ramsay Bolton in Song of Ice and Fire with his wolves, each named after a dead girl. Horrible, horrible. And that idea of, yeah, you're going to see people and they are dead, they're gone. All that's left of them is this replicant that is working for an enemy. So that's unpleasant, isn't it? So don't get got by the Corex unless you already are. And that's where we get some fun things in this. Each of the playbooks are named after a star sign. And one of the neat things my group did when I ran a demo of this was they each went, oh, what's my star sign? I guess I'm being that. So you have the Aries, which you can see is very much the hot-headed Starbuck. You've got Cancer, which is your kind of experienced veteran who is a little soft-hearted over time. You're kind of your Adama, who has his favourites and will let them mess up. You have the Leo, my own star sign, who is confident and flashy. They even have, God, just seeing the moves here. So this is a Powered by the Apocalypse game, much like Bite Marks, but it's got its own moves, its own stats, its own everything. It has Smoke Me a Kipper, I'll Be Back for Breakfast, and Lord Flashheart as its moves, and I'm very proud of being linked to that. So yeah, the Smoke Me a Kipper, as an example, is when you show off in front of a public audience, roll plus warm. So 2d6 plus your warm stat. On a 10 plus, they're wowed. You can either erase an attrition, which I've said again, fleet needs that not to go up. Erase one pressure. I'll get to that soon. Take +1 forward to proving how great you are, or someone in the audience is impressed by you, or wants to impress you, or both. Yes, on a 7 to 9, you get one of those, and you get a complication from one of the other moves, from Let Loose. And on a 6 or less, it goes hideously wrong. Maybe when you're showing off, one of your previous conquests shows up to embarrass you, or to yell at you, or someone throws something, or maybe something in the distance goes boom, and oh dear, now everyone's panicking. You also have the Scorpio, which is one of my favourite playbooks. This is the Boltar playbook. This is one where you are the enemy, and you probably don't know it yet. And at the start of every session, you make a roll to see what you've been up to. So you, the player, don't have to work against the group. As a player in the moment, in the game, in the fiction, you can do your best to help the group out, to go, oh my God, I've woken up and there's an unconscious engineer and there's a case that's open and 3 bombs are missing from it. Oh, Jesus. And this happened in the demo I ran. It was unfortunate for Reese, the player who was doing this. And of course, his first thought was, I need to cover this up because I'm going to get executed. Something bad's going to happen. And as he was doing that, an explosion went off in the distance. And people were shocked. People were like, oh my God, there's a sabotage. The Corex have done something. And he needed to tell them there are 2 more bombs without implicating himself. And it creates this amazing tension. I've really enjoyed seeing that in action. I mean, Reese is a glorious chaos engine anyway, and this just really encouraged it. There were some stunning moments, which I go into in depth in a preview that I did of Last Fleet, which will be hopefully linked to down below if Mike's done his job. Not that either of us are paid for this, but, you know, job. So anyway, the playbooks, I won't get into all of them because, my word, there's a lot, but they are very good fun. They're very evocative, not only of archetypes from, you know, that, but also with enough wiggle room and enough to play in with science fiction tropes, with anything, as I said, with the Lord of Flashheart reference and Smoke Me a Kipper and all that. The moves are, like a lot of PBTA games, a little glib, but really evocative, really good. You've also got the general moves, and this is where the mechanical, interesting parts, the parts that are different from wherever I've put it, bite marks, from Apocalypse World or all that come in. And the main thing is pressure. You don't have health, you have pressure. So, oh my God, I've been exploded. That's gonna be some pressure. If you fail a roll or want to make a roll better, you can add +1 to your result after you roll by adding to your pressure. The problem with this is whenever your pressure hits 5, you're at a breaking point. And you've only got so many breaking points before you're done. This is something similar to Jason Morningstar's Night Witches, where you have marks. And they're great. The idea is you hit them and something happens. You've got a little checklist, and each playbook's got 1 or 2 of their own, but everyone's got a general list. And these include things like lash out. Nice and safe. Oh, my pressure's up. I'm going to mark it and I'm going to lash out at someone. I'm immune. I'm fine from, you know, mechanical problems. Well, no, because it's going to drive more pressure for other people. It's going to make things more tense. People might go, oh, you're acting suspiciously there. Or maybe we can't trust them to head up the squadron or anything like that. You've also got put yourself or others in immediate danger of like, right, no, I'm taking a jet. I'm going. Which again is great fun. There's also exit the game. Now, you don't have to pick it as your last option. You can always hit 5 pressure and go, fuck it, I've only got 1 more of these filled in, but I'm going to exit the game. I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. I'm going to, you know, do like some of the characters there, maybe take my own life, maybe do something incredibly risky and bow out, or do something else to render yourself unable to be a playable character anymore. Get a new playbook. So that pressure is a really interesting gauge, and there are 3 core kind of basic moves which work with this. You've got reach out, which is when you're being empathetic to people. There's let loose, when you're drinking, when you're playing cards, when you're just doing anything to blow off steam, but at the slight risk of angering people, of making problems happen, compared to reaching out, which is more empathetic. And there's call someone on their shit, which is going to raise their pressure, but is going to be an interesting way of going, yeah, you shouldn't have done this. You kind of have this triangle of those 3 moves, which all manipulate the pressure and act as some of the core dynamics of what you do in the game. So that's really cool. There are can't speak. There are other basic moves, of course. There are things like engage in battle, shake off, which is your kind of general avoid or resist any sort of threats roll, weather serious harm. So again, when your boy got blown up, as well as marking pressure, we'll have to weather serious harm. And what that's going to be is a roll to see how bad is it. Is that going to be pressure goes up? Is it going to be you are taking -1 forward? I forget the specifics of the move because it's been a little while since I ran this, but it is interesting to see whenever you've got any of these games that do that, where they say, oh yeah, when you take damage, that is a roll in itself. So yes, you have, let's see what else, seek out when you're looking for something. So we had bombs loose on our ships, and seek out rolls were needed from some people when they were actively hunting, either in ships or ransacking the places themselves. There's pull strings, there's cover up, because a lot of covering up was needed, and not just from our Corex infiltrator. There's support. And then one of my favourite moves in this, which I want to see in other games, which is wait helplessly. Wait helplessly is where you can't do anything. And sometimes I've had this where I've been like, you, what do you do? You, what do you do? And someone goes, I don't know, I can't really affect this. I had that happen here where the captain of the fleet was watching the seek out that people were doing in their little fighter ships, trying to examine any sign of tampering, anything like that, and they couldn't do anything to help. They just had to watch from their window, and opened up the last bottle of wine and described how they were waiting helplessly. And that in itself gave a bonus to people who were doing the seek out action. And I love those kind of little moments of doing nothing but affecting the narrative, of kind of being part of the story, because you can see that, can't you? You can see in an episode of BSG it being like, oh, people are panicking, things are happening, and like Adama or someone's just like, I'm gonna stare at my little model ships, look pensive, but Adama style. So yeah, those are the basic moves. Playbooks get their own moves. The fleet has some fun things with the attrition and momentum. Then the GM has their own list of different moves, threats, things they can do. The game I ran of it was really fun, really interesting. It was another one which works perfectly as a one-shot, but would be fascinating to see as a long-term game. I think if I ran it again, I'd try and make the Corex a bit more of a direct threat. My group were very good at making each other enough of a threat, and just the appearance of these bombs was something that took the evening. We had index cards out for each of the ships, and people were going back and forth, and we did have a couple of times where there was a sense of the people in command felt like they could only interact with one another rather than anything else, and that's where the captain going, right, no, going to the hangar, I'm going to confront this possible spy that's going to show up, which was our poor Scorpio, had emergency escape podded himself out from the ship with the bombs on, and luckily for him there was a last minute kind of like, oh my god, one of the people in the hangars actually a Corax, and his arse got saved in a very Boltar kind of like, oh, last second, all sorted for now. And it just gelled him as more of a probable hero and helper against the Corax, which, if we kept on with the campaign, would cause more drama, more pressure, more attrition, and so on, and would build and keep rolling and rolling into this nice continued narrative. So sounds like there's a lot to grow and a lot to sort out, but this, like the other Black Armada games, is done with a couple of starter scenarios using the Corex and the Commonwealth. It also has a really odd, really interesting reskin of it using ancient Greek mythology, where you have stolen Sharon and death can't happen. You are functionally immortal. Isn't that great? Also means no new kids, but you are immortal. And Hades is not happy with that. He's a bit moody, and he's sent an army of the dead out after you lot. So you are fleeing from city to city, trying to stop death from catching up with you. And it's a really interesting way of using these kind of mechanics. I'd be curious to see what else could be done with this sort of pursuit. So yeah, out of these games, I think Lovecraft-esque is definitely the one I can do like that. Go, okay, I've got 2 hours to do a role-playing game. Brilliant. Here it is. Right here, right now. Boom, done. There are the special cards, which can sometimes make it a little tricky to navigate without those specific props, but I've done it before. Flotsam is a bit of a trickier sell because of the whole GM-fullness, but the teaching guide makes it, again, a perfect, I can run this immediately sort of thing. Last Fleet and Bite Marks are glorious one-shot and campaign games. Out of all of these, I'd recommend definitely get Lovecraft-esque, and I know there's a second edition being considered and worked on, and there's even a Poirot-style murder mystery hack of it, which you can get on Black Armada's Patreon. So that's, I think, if you want a unique experience, definitely that. But it would be so difficult to recommend one of these over another, as far as this is the game to play. So check them all out. Go to Black Armada's site, have a look at their Patreon. They do some incredible games. I didn't even get into them, but there's stuff like X Marks the Spot, which is a treasure map game, which you kind of need grog for. But it's where you draw a map to treasure and you narrate the quest that you and other ships are doing. So yeah, that's really neat. There's History Dig Live, which I love. It's Time Team as a role-playing game. I've run it twice now. Hopefully I'll remember to send Mike something to put here to reflect it, or maybe I'll just put a picture of the Time Team on, but it's so much fun. There are a few other different games out there that they've done. There's Nuns with Guns in Space, which is a kind of 40k type game, if that's your thing. There's so much, and I'm really curious to see what comes from the Black Armada next. So check them all out. We'll put links to their site, to their Patreon, to our Patreon, which got me this microphone, which hopefully I've actually put in now. And I will see you next time.